welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I'm your host today, Jen, and today I am here with a veritable friend of the show who has been here many times and who is the author of a great many wonderful books, but who is here today to discuss one in particular, a sort of landmark achievement in the series in which it exists. And I am so pleased to have this conversation. Welcome. Could I ask you to introduce yourself and your book, please?
Hi, I'm Deanna Raybourn, and I'm here to chat about A Ghastly Catastrophe, which is the 10th Veronica Speedwell book, pubbing March 3rd, 2026. So, yeah, number 10.
Yeah, congratulations. What an achievement.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the first time I've had a series go quite this long, and it was, it feels like I just blinked. And we're 10 books in. I cannot believe Veronica has had that many adventures. Our little Victorian lepidopterist, so many bodies.
Yeah, so many bodies.
So many bodies.
Has come so far. With 10 books over, I believe they were published over 11 years. And so I imagine that some of these characters have lived with you even longer than that as you've developed the project. Does she tell you when she's ready for a new story at this point?
No, Veronica does what I tell her to. No, so much of it comes down to what my publisher's looking for at the time. Because when I started writing the Veronica Speedwell books, for the first several, we were just doing Veronica. And then in 2022, I published my first contemporary thriller. So that year we took a break from Veronica. And then last year was the sequel to that thriller. So, we had Killers of a Certain Age in 22. And then in 25, we had Kills Well with Others, which has just come out in paperback. So we took little breaks from Veronica. And right now I'm writing another contemporary, which is a standalone jewel heisty thing, which I'm really looking forward to being done with. I'm having a great time writing it. But that one will be out in 27. So, we're taking little breaks from Veronica, but we always go back. And that's honestly so much fun because it keeps everything fresh. When I've really just pushed myself to the absolute limits, building a new world, creating new characters, then I can go back to the kind of familiar joys of a Veronica book. And then when I really, kind of feel like I need to get my teeth into a challenge, then it's time to do something different. So it's the best of both worlds for me.
Nice. Yeah, sort of like a palate cleanser in between the really big challenges. So
Exactly. These are my sorbets.
Yeah. Her stories are, to me at least, after so long, very cozy at this point. The setting is familiar, the characters are familiar, and it's really fun to get to see their personalities and their relationships develop over such a long period of time. A broad question to begin, where does a new mystery start for you, apart from the characters, the setting that you've chosen? What is the seed from which it grows? Is it the body? Is it, a mood? Where does sort of it grow from?
It varies from book to book. Luckily, when you do a series this long, you can have a self-contained mystery within each individual book. But then overarching all of the series, you've got the interpersonal relationships between the characters. The two main characters, we've got Veronica, who is a lepidopterist. She's a butterfly hunter. And then you've got her, kind of gorgeous sidekick, Stoker, and they have a romantic relationship going on, an unconventional romantic relationship going on. But then we have all of these side characters who've come in. Stoker has brothers whom he is not particularly fond of, but Veronica loves his brothers. So every book we usually see one of the Templeton Vane boys coming in. We've got a very intrepid female reporter by the name of J.J. Butterworth, who makes an appearance in this book, along with Stoker's brother Tiberius. We have some members of Scotland Yard who pop up from time to time, and we have this extended aristocratic family that Veronica works for. And so what I try to do is make sure that I don't have too many of those characters in any one given book, because that's too much. But we alternate. One book may have a lot of Tiberius and no JJ at all. Another book may be very Mornaday heavy. It just depends. But in this case, this one started with the idea that it would be fun to play with vampires because I wrote it's probably 15, 16 years now since I wrote a book called The Dead Travel Fast, which was my homage to the Gothic. Because as a reader, I was reading as a teenager when Victoria Holt was still publishing and loved some Victoria Holt. They don't always necessarily stand up very well to rereading in this day and age. There's a lot of big colonizer energy going on. But the puzzle of, oh, is this man I'm interested in, is he a good man or is he a bad man? That always seemed to be the crux of what her heroines were struggling with, which is, just kind of delicious. And so when I wrote The Dead Travel Fast, the question for me was, is this a human man or is he a vampire? And I had so much fun playing with the whole vampire thing that I thought, you know what, it's time. Let's give Veronica a vampire story because, why not? The book before that was A Grave Robbery. And that one came about because I was fascinated with what are called anatomical beauties. Were wax figures that were sculpted I think they started them in the 17th century before medical schools started using cadavers for teaching anatomy classes. They would do these wax models and you could kind of pull different layers out. And the weird thing about them was they were stunningly beautiful. And they would have very, kind of beautifully made up faces and long flowing hair. And some of them might have a little pearl necklace on. And you're like, that's a fancy dummy that you've got working there. They were very glamorous looking. And so I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun if they got a hold of one of these for this museum collection that they're building, and then Stoker cuts into and realizes it's actually a human body. So, and that happens in chapter 1 of A Grave Robbery. So most of the time it's just me coming up with some strange idea and saying, how would these characters react to it? How would it play out? Why would it happen? How does it enter their lives? Is it because someone is asking them to sleuth around and solve something? Is it because they just stumble over it? These people stumble over a lot of bodies. And I mean, they should probably themselves be investigated, honestly. It's getting like Jessica Fletcher and Cabot Cove at this point.
Yeah. Wow, that is fascinating. And as you were talking about the models, it occurred to me that a mystery is such a nice way to sort of introduce an audience to like a really interesting historical subject or an interesting subculture, like a secret society,
For
maybe.
sure. Yeah.
Because you have characters who have to figure out who the people involved are, what they're doing, what the stakes are, what the motives might be. You get to really like do a little bit of like history and anthropology sometimes too.
Oh, for sure. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that I am deeply selfish and I want to write about things that I find fun and that are interesting to me. So, the third Veronica Speedwell book was one where I was very into the idea of, oh, let's do an Egyptology book because, I loved the Amelia Peabody series. And that was kind of around the time that the series was winding up as a love letter to Amelia Peabody. Let's give Veronica an Egyptology adventure. And another one we did was for Victorian female explorers. I was interested in the ones who were mountain climbing. So I did one with a mountaineering princess. And, at the same time, we had like a whole Prince and the Pauper situation where Veronica has to go undercover as a princess. Because I thought it would be super fun to take this character who is so different from the typical Victorian woman and truss her up in the tightest corset you can imagine and stick a massive crown on the top of her head because I knew she'd be miserable. And it's so fun when Veronica's miserable because, watching her, creating ways for her to get out of those situations is always, a great deal of fun.
Absolutely. This is one of the reasons that I love female protagonists of historical mysteries because you get to really play with a character who is both of her time, but ahead of it. Like she's definitely born of the society that she produced her. She is a Victorian woman, but she also flouts a lot of the standard conventions, doesn't really like hold sway with all of the mores that are sort of shaping society at the time. And just that like disconnect is such a like an infinite conflict engine, just
It is,
constantly just
absolutely.
obstacles.
And, Veronica absolutely does not care about what quote unquote normal society is doing. She could not be less interested. She's very much a self-actualized woman who is interested in doing things that interest her. And she wants to follow her own passions and pursuits. And in that regard, she is different from the average Victorian woman, but she's not different from all Victorian women, because there were women doing these things. There were women getting out there and establishing their own newspapers and agitating for the right to vote and all kinds of things. And there's a fascinating subset of Victorian women who just kind of packed up their carpet bags and were like, I'm going to go see the world. And we just take off. Nellie Bly was a Victorian woman, and her around the world trip. Nellie Bly was not the only person making that trip. There was another female journalist doing it at exactly the same time, going the opposite direction around the world. And so we tend to think that sometimes these women are complete outliers. And actually, they're not. There actually was this little sisterhood of women who looked at the conventions of the time and just went, not for me. Not for me.
Well, a good lesson for students of history that no group of people is a monolith. There are going to be
Absolutely
as many different people as there are fingerprints. And I just really love the way that Veronica, the particular issues that she chooses to organize her choices around, and the particular mores that she casts aside as what women are or aren't supposed to do, they are all very of her time. So I think that like sometimes when we say somebody is ahead of their time, we do like they're still responding to what's happening. Oh gosh, that was like absolutely not coherent at all.
No, I do get what you're saying, and the thing is, when you scratch the surface of history, you find out that there is nothing new under the sun. I made a point of including in one of the books, I have Veronica and Stoker kind of making mention of the fact that in Trafalgar Square, there is a tent city of immigrants that literally existed at that time. Those few months that I'm talking about in the book, there was a tent city of immigrants in Trafalgar Square because people couldn't figure out what to do with these people who were coming to London because they were in search of a better life. And they might not have spoken the language, and they didn't necessarily know how to go about making a place for themselves. And the government was kind of at a loss, and they were, the conservative newspapers were whipping up resentment against these people, saying, oh no, crime, when these people were just looking for a way to make a better life for themselves. And nobody really knew what to do with that. Nobody really knew what to do with women who were wanting bodily autonomy. There's a huge scandal because Oscar Wilde has a boyfriend, and what are we going to do about that? And so you have people who are pushing the boundaries of what were considered to be normal gender roles. You had people who were trying to figure out how technology was going to fit into their lives because they were confused and upset by it. People would step onto an escalator for the first time and pass out because it's like, oh my God, the stairs are moving. That is not okay. The long 19th century had this incredible change in technology in a way that we are the only other group of people who have witnessed as significant a change as the Victorians did, because at the start of Victoria's reign, everybody is getting places on horseback. That's as fast as information can travel, is as fast as you can ride a horse to get there. They're illuminating things with candles and with things like whale oil. And then by the end of Victoria's reign in 1901, you have the first automobiles, and you've got electric light. And in between, they're navigating steamships, locomotives, telegraphs. And it's astonishing to think of this world that started for them in the 1830s is very similar in a lot of ways to what it would have been in previous decades. But by 1901, dear God, it was shocking to a lot of them. You've got telephones. I remember reading there's a wonderful archive online where you can read the minutes of parliamentary debates. And I was reading the minutes for it was somewhere in the late 1880s. I think it was 1888. And members of parliament are sitting there going, okay, telephones, you guys, what do we do? If we let people put in telephones, okay, first of all, who are they going to call? Who else has a phone? How do we do this? Are you allowed to do this? Is it going to blow up the house? Like, what do we do? And so they're trying to figure out, how do we incorporate this technology in a way that's going to serve people? Is it going to get out of control? I mean, none of these questions have gone away. None of these questions have been resolved. They're all still things that we're talking about. The role of women, the role of gender identity, the role of immigrants, the role of technology. We're still struggling with every bit of it. They didn't solve it, and neither have we. And so there's this kind of universal understanding that Victorians just are not that different.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember when I was still in grad school, I TA'd for your basic history 101 sort of intro to Europe class. I remember the professor who I was TAing for talking about how at the beginning of that era, the clothes that people wore still looked very old-fashioned. But when you get to the end of that era, men's suits still look pretty much the same, and we have a more diverse range of, skirt lengths for women now. We're still wearing the same articles of clothing, and so there really is something about like the modern world being birthed in that time. And gosh, what an interesting time to just be traveling the world and encountering so many different kinds of people, so many different cultures, subcultures. It really is, even though there's a lot of strife in these books for Veronica, it is enviable too.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to trade places with her.
No.
I like my antibiotics and
Yeah.
my foam core mattress and all of my lovely little luxuries that I have right now. But there are aspects of her life that are wonderful. I think sometimes, and I'm fascinated by the fact that there are things that we think of as being tremendous luxuries that cost extra that would have been routine and matter of fact to them. Oh, you go somewhere on horseback. Oh, you have, you write with a fountain pen, and you've got beeswax candles, and your clothes are custom made, and you have leather books. And it's just so funny that those were everyday objects to these folks, and now they've become kind of rarefied and things that come at a premium for us. Can you imagine having all your clothes custom fitted? Like, how glorious that would be.
Yeah.
Oh, and all natural fibers. Everything is silk or wool or cotton. Amazing.
Not a microplastic to be found.
There you go. There you go.
So my last question is about writing Veronica and Stoker. They've come such a long way in their professional and personal relationship. Can you talk a little bit about perhaps the joy of a slow burn? Because I've always enjoyed, the slow burn to the insta love, or whatever love at first sight, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, for me, the romantic element is present in every book, but it's not the most important part of the book. Because if you took the romantic element out of it and they just had a friendship this entire time, the books still work. The books are still mysteries. The books, there's a puzzle within each one of them that is solved by the end. Giving them a slow burn romance was a way of enhancing the relationship between the two of them, because they are very different people in a lot of ways. But they also have some things in common that they would never find with anyone else. The fact that Veronica has zero intention of getting married or having babies, and that Stoker has had such a horrifying first marriage that he's like, nope, I don't want that either. That they're both all in on this very unconventional relationship is a great deal of fun to write. It wasn't necessarily completely unique for that time. There were people who were like, love you, don't love this, not going to be going into this institution. But it gives an opportunity for me to explore how these characters are developing over a much longer period of time. The books so far, we have 10 adventures. They do not take place over 10 years. Like, it's been like 2.5 years since they met. So there hasn't been a huge opportunity for growth yet, because every book kind of takes place a few months after the one before. And one or two of them have picked up literally the day that the previous book ended. So some of them I've kind of compacted that timeline a little bit, but they have grown. They are better together than they were apart. They have caused each other to kind of go back and revisit places where they close themselves down, and to just say, you know what, I am open to you. I'm open to this adventure with you, because this is the grand adventure, is being in this relationship with you. And if somebody tries to shoot us or stab us or drown us or garrote us or burn us up in the meantime, at least I'm going to go out happy because I have you. So
I always enjoy in a series, because there's a lot of, maybe I'm gonna like frame this historically. I feel like in early mystery series, you sort of have that like the sitcom reset button in between books, where
yeah.
nothing from one carries over to the another, and you could read them in any order that you like. It doesn't matter where you pick them up. That is fun, and there's a place for that, and it's nice not to be, tied down by continuity sometimes. But I do love when you get to see how the impact of each adventure lingers in their relationship, how it affects them and their dynamic, even over a couple years. It's really fun to see how the stakes, it gives it stakes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that right there is the tightrope act, is can I discuss the relationship in a way that people could read the books out of order if they wanted to, which, I mean, you can, because the only spoilers you're going to get from one book to the next is, oh, they're in a relationship now, versus, oh, they were not in a relationship yet. I work very hard to make sure that from book to book, I don't reveal the spoilers of who done it in a previous book, or why done it, or how done it, just that this was an adventure that they had. And a lot of times, so what I've started doing is, you'll see as the books go on, if Veronica, because Veronica's the narrator of the books, if she's making reference to a previous case, there'll be an asterisk which tells you which book she's talking about. So if she says something about our Egyptological adventure, there'll be an asterisk, and then the footnote says a treacherous curse. So people will know, oh, that's the Egyptology book. I can go back and read that. But it doesn't tell you who was cursed, or who did the cursing, or how it all transpired. And if the relationship is super important to someone and they really want to watch the development, absolutely read the books in order. But if you're just there for the mystery puzzle and the rest of it you're not that fussed about, read them however you like. I always tend to read from the beginning of a series because I enjoy that sort of an arc. But like I said, that's the tightrope act right there, is trying to make sure that I always leave it available for readers, and we don't end on a cliffhanger, or we don't end on page 1 of the next book telling you, oh, well, when so and so was hanged for murder after we after we apprehended him, that would kind of spoil the fun, I think.
Interesting. Is another way to sort of look at that or frame that like balancing, let's say, like the needs of the new reader versus like rewarding the old reader? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Because you want, you always want to continue to bring in new readers. And to me, that is one of the greatest joys as a reader, is to find someone and really love their stuff, and then go, oh my God, they've got 20 books. And then just go, oh, there's this entire back catalog for me to order. And then to find out that the library has all of them is like, oh, yeah, there's always this idea that you want to serve that new reader, and you absolutely want to be serving the reader who has been there from the very beginning and has stuck with these characters because there is something in those relationships and in those people that they love and that they want to keep coming back to. That's why they are along for the ride.
speaking of coming back to, do you think we'll see them again? Do you have any future plans yet? Or
Oh, yeah, I'm under contract for number 11. Sure.
Okay.
That's not even a question. That's not even a question.
Yeah.
No, as soon as I finish the book that I'm working on right now, I'll be getting started on Veronica 11. So yeah, that's definitely happening.
Amazing. It's very impressive how you are able to balance so many releases and projects at the same time. I wonder, actually, is it, if you're writing like a historical mystery and a contemporary thriller at the same time, is it helpful to have two very different projects to alternate as opposed to two that are kind of similar? Or
Yeah, I mean, for me, absolutely. And technically I'm not writing them at the same time. That would send me. What I tend to do, but they are kind of interwoven, but I'm doing very different things for each book at a particular time. Like right now, we're releasing Veronica 10, A Ghastly Catastrophe. So I'm doing PR for that. I'm having interviews, talking to people, writing up a couple of little extra things. But I'm writing the contemporary book that's coming out in 27. And when I finish writing that book and that one goes into production, I'll change gears and start writing Veronica 11. I have an idea of what Veronica 11 is going to be. I mean, I have like the pitch line for it, so I know what the hook is. But as far as the specifics on character and how we get there and no, I don't have any of that yet. But I'll start developing that when this book is put to bed. So it's not so much that I have to be a writer for all these different things at the same time. I'm a writer and I'm an author. That's how they're interwoven, is I'm doing the author stuff for everything else, but I'm doing the writer stuff for this one. And those are different skill sets, different mindsets.
Very interesting distinction. Yeah, that is very cool. Well, thank you for sharing so much of your process and for sharing so many of Veronica's adventures with us. It's been such a great ride, and I am so excited to see where they go. And I appreciate you taking the time from your busy schedule.
Oh, I always love talking to Syosset. Come on. You guys are a favorite. So thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, you're so welcome. Okay, listeners, and you now have your homework. Please check out A Ghastly Catastrophe. It is so much fun. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time. It is time to close this chapter. Bye-bye.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.